So the 2012 Tri-State Mudder is in the books, and I have to say it was one of the best times I've had in a really, really long time. It was challenging. It was brutal at times, but I really honestly loved every minute of it, and completing the course and crossing the finish line was one of the best feelings I've had in a really long time. It was just a really, really fun time on a lot of levels. I thought I would just kind of recap the race, and then as we move forward over the next couple weeks, I'll try to go back and bring in some of the biomechanics stuff as far as the training goes. I talked a bunch about it, but I never really got a chance with all the training and all the workload to really make videos specific to the training stuff. So I'll have more time to do that over the next few weeks. So I just recap the race real quick for you, kind of let you know what my experience was. It's exciting, and it was amazing. I heard, and I'm not sure what the actual numbers are, but there was actually close to 40,000 participants alone, and that just to me is mind-boggling. I went off because my daughter had a soccer game in the morning. I went off later in the day, actually one of the last groups. I was scheduled for the last group at 1:20, but I ended up just going off at 1 o'clock. When I got there, it was a lot warmer than I expected. In fact, it was almost hot, which is interesting because I trained in cold weather, for cold weather, expecting it to be very chilly and maybe even rainy, and it ended up being sunny and hot. I think it was at least in the high 60s, if not even maybe it crept into the 70s at some point in time, low 70s. I chose to wear not my thermal gear, but my long sleeve compression gear and a top over top of it, short thigh length compression leg gear with shorts over top, socks and sneakers. When I first started off, I was regretting it because I was honestly, it was hot. Even after some of the cooler obstacles, I was quite warm. But by the end of it, especially as the sun started to set, I was glad that I did wear the longer stuff. It's almost impossible, I imagine, unless you're doing this in the middle of summer, to not have some hypothermia by the end of it. They said it averaged about 3.5 hours to do the course. I took about 4. I was late in the day. The obstacles were extremely muddy, and there was not at every obstacle, but at a couple key points there was some significant backup, especially in the second half of the race. The first half of the race went pretty quickly. The second half of the race there seemed to be quite a lot of backup at obstacles, which made it drag out a little bit. So I'll just recap kind of how the experience. So got going. First thing, I think you run roughly a mile or something along that to the Arctic enema. This was really, you see it, you prepare yourself for it. My goal, or my approach to the obstacles, was to go immediately, to not hesitate or to think about the obstacle too much, but basically, unless I was held up by the backlog, was to find a place and just go for it and just get it over with and do it, and not hesitate or think about it too much or scope it out too much. So we got to the Arctic enema, got in line, went right in, jumped in. It's a quick shock to the system. It is, obviously virtually ice water. It's a big pool of water filled with ice. It's literally ice. But what's interesting is I jumped in, was shocked, but I really didn't think much of it. So this is not bad. About halfway through, getting to the other side, which isn't that far. I mean, it's maybe 10, 20 feet. Well, more than 10. Well, I don't know, 15, 20 feet. I couldn't feel my lower body, from like my chest down. Literally cannot feel it. It just goes numb so quickly. And which is interesting, like if you would ever fall into an icy creek or a pond or something like that, I mean, it gives you an idea of what you're up against, because literally within seconds you can't feel your lower body and you're just numb. And then, of course, you get to the end of it, and there's all these people log jammed up that can't climb out of the thing, and then you just stand there, freezing. Eventually, I found a slot around people that were struggling to get out, and I just jumped out real quick, helped 1 or 2 people over. The other thing I loved about it was the camaraderie is fantastic. Everybody helps everybody. Helped a few people out that were struggling right in front of me, and then I hightailed it, and I was feeling really good, even though when you're running, you're squishy, squashy, and you can't feel your legs or your feet for the most part. It's kind of interesting. So started running, but I felt good even then, and you know, I was passing people and you know, going at a pretty good clip. You get to I don't know if I forget what the obstacle's called, but basically it's a long series of mud trenches, in and out of mud trenches, and I love that. I mean, you basically slide into it. You're waist deep or so in muddy water. You know, and then when you slide in, you can't really stop yourself from sliding into it. So you get, you know, sunk into the mud. You got to trudge across. There's big potholes everywhere that you might fall into. Get on the other side, and then you got to climb up the other side. And there's quite a number of them, and then there's just a long stretch of squishy, deep mud to run through. It was quite a long, tiring obstacle. And this is where I felt like, wow, I'm glad I did all those leg intervals and those squat intervals and all the running / intervals that I did, because you start to feel the fatigue on your legs. But I got through that pretty well, and again, on the outside of that, took off, started running. Did pretty well. I probably forget some of the stuff because it's been a couple days since I've done it. But I think at that point we came around, and I believe that you pretty much went. There's running. I would say good. Almost half of the running took place in some sort of mud, which is extremely tiring because you're not just running. You're trying to maintain your balance. Your feet are slipping all over the place or sticking, and it's a tiring run more than just running on pavement or on a trail. I think there was a quick water station, and then there were the Berlin walls. Berlin walls, flew through those. I think, all the burpees, the pull-ups, and all that kind of stuff that I did really paid off. I was surprised at how much upper body strength played a role. I try not to go into too much detail. I'll drag this out forever, but I was really shocked at how much upper body strength and core control played a role. Berlin walls, go right to it. Spring up, jump, grab, pull up, and flip. If you try to stop, slow down, climb it, pull yourself up with your arms, you'll struggle and you'll waste a ton of energy. It has to be an explosive, one movement, jump, pull, swing yourself over, drop on the other side, and that went very smoothly. So then I hit the first obstacle where things started to go. So as I'm coming off the first set of Berlin walls, I'm running up. Now we're getting over to the motocross section. And I can see a big pile up next to this big muddy hill. It looked like a tabletop on the motocross track, and it's just a huge mass of people. And so I'm like, well, this can't be good, So you get up there, and basically what it is the first step up is just virtually vertical mud sheet, and it's just impossible to get up this thing. I think earlier in the day you probably could have run it and made it and then grabbed up, because then there's like a little bit of a ledge to then go up to the next part. Probably could have ran up enough to pull yourself up. But the problem is you've got this massive number of people standing at the base of it, and there's no way to get any traction or any run up to it. So you're basically starting from a dead stop, which means you're going to get about 3 feet, if that, up this hill and slide back down. There's just virtually no way to get going on it. So then what happens is everyone helps each other. You start almost to form like a human ladder. People on the bottom pushing someone else pushing, and then people at the top pulling. It was a very, very tiring exercise, I would say, and there was a number of these throughout the entire course, and I would say they were the most draining of all the obstacles. Just slipping and sliding and pushing and grabbing and pulling. And you absolutely needed help. There was no way that you could do this by yourself, unless, like I said, if there was no one around and you could get a good running start and get up just enough to get a hold of the ledge and then pull yourself up. But even that would have been difficult. And then from there now, you're running all along a motocross track that's just sloppy mud with other variations of that steep climb, not as steep or as treacherous, all things you could do by yourself, but it was extremely tiring. And again, here's the one where I was surprised at how much upper body strength played a role, because on a lot of the hills that were steep and slippery enough, I would run as hard as I could, get to the top, you start slipping, and I would actually grab with my hands and almost like bear walk it up to the top, the last 5 feet or so. The other thing that was tough to navigate was people in front of you would take off, get halfway up the hill, stop, slide back down, you know, and then so if you were running up right behind them, you got stuck behind them, you'd get caught up as well. And then if you waited for them, though, so that they would get higher up so that you could go with a buffer, someone would inevitably come in front of you and just take off and run, and then there would be a big chain of people falling down and sliding. So you had to time it and plan it as well. But I kept going through it pretty well. I was pretty happy with my pace through all that. There was, if I remember correctly, like a tummy crawl under some barbed wire. That was basically, it was sloppy and nasty, but you just dive on the ground and shimmy. And the thing is again, I thought, again, core control and upper body strength. I just worked my core and my upper body and just went as fast as I possibly could, shot right through the other side, and then, you know, jumped out and got going. Probably forget some of the stuff, but then basically, you know, some running, and then we get up to another station, bananas and water, and I was feeling really pretty good. I was making ground on the course and chugging along pretty good. Then there was a rope climb, knotted ropes with footholds, climb up, over and then down the other side. That was fun and pretty straightforward. Again, just try to attack it. You know, I'd go for there was backups, but then there was a lot of open ropes. You just go to open rope, get on and get going. Dropped off the other side. I believe then we ran up and did a swim across a body of water. I don't know, maybe 50 yards or so to like a cargo net climb, and then up and over. And what I did with this was a lot of people were waiting, and I think it was, if you were tall enough, you could almost walk, but it was very muddy and slippery. People were kind of just, you know, wading through it, or just kind of basically like, you know, like a doggy paddle or like a breaststroke. I just grabbed, they had a bunch of ropes with buoys, and I just grabbed the hold of the rope and floated and just pulled myself, and I was able to save a lot of energy and get across very, very quickly. So I just pulled myself over, got over the cargo net. I had to wait for one person, held the bottom, you know, climbed up. I found the bigger steps I did in the cargo net, the better. If I tried to go one at a time, it swayed more. If I did 2 or 3 gaps at a time and then really almost like a one-legged squat, jumped up and pulled, that I went much quicker. The other thing I would suggest is that everyone wants to help, and that is so awesome. It's a really, you feel the camaraderie of everybody. People you don't know are helping and lending a hand and reaching out for you. But I would suggest that you only take the hand if you absolutely need it, because to be totally honest with you, I don't. It's hard to tell if the person can actually pull you, hold you, and a lot of times they're slippery, you're slippery, and you waste more energy trying to grab and grip and get pulled up than you would if you just did it yourself. So I would, you know, from that perspective, I would say that's something to consider. Then, you know, you run through the smoke thing, which I thought would be more of a challenge than it was, but it really wasn't. It was very limited. But then there's the electric eel, where you crawl under the barbed wire with the electrical wires hanging, you get the shock. So a lot of people were hanging out and not wanting to go through it, and there was a lot of open lanes when I got there. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the big deal? I mean, I get a shock, you know, so what? I'm just going to blow through this like I did the other barbed wire crawl, because I flew through the other one. So I dive right in, and it's like water with muddy water. It's, you know, and so I start going along, and I get, I don't know, maybe a third of the way into it, and I get zapped. And I swear, I was not expecting the jolt that it was. I literally saw, like, I thought for a second I didn't know where I was, and I literally thought that I had gotten kicked in the face by someone in front of me. Like with a boot or something, like a mule kick, and obviously there wasn't anybody even in front of me, and I was like, whoa, and it didn't dawn on me that it was electrical shock, because I just got floored. I mean, you don't really black out, but literally didn't know where I was for like a half a second, and then I thought I got kicked and realized there was no one in front of me, kept going and got it 2 more times before I got out, and I'm telling you what, I was not expecting the jolt that shock delivered, and I was definitely caught off guard by it. There's no doubt. It hurts, and it's like getting whacked in the head with like a mule kick or a shovel or something. I don't know. It's interesting. But I was cooking along pretty good, and then then I got into the wood section, and that's where the pile up started. I think it's probably about halfway into the race, maybe a little bit more. But maybe not halfway, maybe like 5 miles into it. That's where the piles up started. I mean, it was just, you just standing and standing. And so now you and it's